I'll never forget the moment my trembling hand hovered over my late husband's phone at his own funeral, feeling every inch a trespasser in my own life. The screen flickered to life, and there it was, a message from someone named Mijeong, pleading with Young-soo to keep his promise. The cold sting of betrayal pierced me more sharply than grief. In an instant, 38 years of marriage unraveled in my heart like a paper torn in two. I'm in my 60s now. My marriage to Young-soo had been less a passionate choice of youth, more an acceptance of the life before me. He was a diligent, ordinary man, a reliable salaryman, and I, grounded in practicality, matched his steady path. Raising our daughter, Sujin, and caring for my ailing mother consumed me for years, keeping my own body and spirit locked in a perpetual winter. Over time, a gap opened between us, not through infidelity or anger, but by neglect, by the weight of unspoken apologies, by meals shared in silence, while the TV filled the emptiness with noise. Young-soo's sudden passing last winter left me adrift, lighter than a plastic bag swirling in the wind. The ER doctor's words felt like a distant announcement rather than a verdict on my life. At the funeral, as visitors bowed with solemn faces, I was struck not by grief or longing, but by a chilling realization. We had become strangers in the guise of family, close enough to share a roof, distant enough to be from separate worlds. It was amidst this fog that I found the message from Mijeong. Her name appeared again and again as I scoured his phone's call logs, his photos, even his notes, each discovery tightening my chest, each mention of her like a shadow filling the gaps our marriage had left open. I leafed madly through his old work clothes, thumbed through battered notebooks, even reviewed the car's dashcam footage, clinging to the hope that the truth, no matter how ugly, would stop the spiral of suspicion. My morning was cut short, not by answers, but by complications. An insurance agent approached me at the funeral to explain that Young-soo had quietly added a new policy just 2 months before his death, without a word to me. My brother-in-law, Sang-ho, demanded that I consider the family's future with the money. The words insurance and inheritance burning between condolences like kindling, transforming subtle family tensions into open, bitter conflict. I saw how grief could be unseated by greed, and how faces I thought I knew could harden so quickly when money was at stake. Consumed by uncertainty, I became an investigator in my own home. Lunch breaks at Young-soo's company loomed as mysterious absences on his calendar. The name Mijeong haunted every clue. Had he loved another? Was there a second life for him within these walls, one I was too weary or too blind to see in all those demanding years? Night after night, I replayed every memory, every argument, every silent meal, desperate to fit the pieces together. In the midst of this, life kept throwing new complications at me. My daughter, Sujin, urged me to let go, to leave things in the past, but I felt I couldn't move forward until I knew the whole truth. Searching for Mijeong led me down countless dead ends. There were dozens with the same name, one working at the public health center nearby, another as a social worker at a hospice hospital. Their phone numbers sat saved on my table for days, but shame or fear kept me from calling. Then, one sleepless morning, I stumbled upon a thin envelope wedged among Young-soo's tax notices. It was a donation receipt for the hospice where Mijeong worked, dated during the time he'd been exchanging those cryptic messages. I resolved to visit the hospital and find answers myself. But before I could, Sang-ho arrived at my door, this time with a lawyer. They wanted an immediate meeting to divide the insurance, making it clear I was expected to sign away more than money, perhaps pieces of my dignity as well. My determination hardened. I swore to myself, with no one else to hear, that I wouldn't yield until I saw the truth myself. If Young-soo had betrayed me, I would live with that knowledge. If I was wrong, I would carry the weight of my suspicions forever. Every day became a quest, pulling bank records, connecting hospital forms, watching hours of security footage at the transit station, tying tiny facts together with trembling hands. Family pressure mounted. Sang-ho talked of family meetings. My mother-in-law wept in the corner for her struggling grandchildren, and relatives sent veiled accusations my way. In the past, I might have apologized and given in. But now, I set my boundaries. I would not move until I knew why Young-soo had left me out of these decisions. His sudden insurance purchase, his secret meetings and absences. I needed to know for myself before yielding anything of mine, tangible or not. Eventually, I made my way to the hospice hospital, sitting in the lobby, hands trembling, surrounded by the sterile scent of disinfectant and the relentless ticking of the wall clock. I asked the receptionist about support fund donations. That's when I saw the name. Mijeong, the social worker. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my spine. I wanted to believe desperately that this was a mistake, that my imagination was the twisting stray facts into a cruel fantasy. I left without saying a word. That night, alone, my phone buzzed with a notification I'd almost missed. An automatic backup of Young-soo's memo files. Among the bland list of titles, one made my breath stop. Final confession. I stared at it for a long time, paralyzed by what I might learn. Only after dinner, after Sujin had gone to bed, did I finally open it. Seated on the floor, hands icy around the phone. His words were short, unadorned, no self-pity, no excuses. He wrote of fear after learning of his illness and why he'd kept it from me. He'd seen how exhausted I was caring for my mother and couldn't bear to burden me further. He wrote that the silent years between us were as much his fault as mine. His regrets, not for infidelity, but for failing to reach out, to reconnect before it was too late. He mentioned meeting a high school boy at the hospice, fighting leukemia, who inspired him to see his losses as time to be given, not hoarded. He wrote of wanting me to be secure, hoping the little he could leave behind would bring some safety to both Sujin and a child he barely knew. Yet even after reading this final confession, the questions didn't let me go. Mijeong's name remained a thorn. Young-soo confirmed only that she was the social worker the hospital had connected him with. He wrote that she had tried to set up a meeting between the two of us. He delayed, then collapsed before it could happen. The words lay heavy on my chest, reframing the months of suspicion and grief in a strange, mournful light. Still, I needed more. The next morning, I returned to the hospice. Step by step, I walked to corridors, bright and blank as sheets of paper, kept moving even as my legs threatened to give. I announced my name, found her office, slipped inside. With a breath, I promised myself I would leave my bitterness and suspicions at the door, at least for a few minutes. There, I finally learned the truth, and it hit me with both relief and sorrow. Mijeong was not a secret lover or a hidden daughter, but the social worker who had guided Young-soo through his final months. The message urging him to keep his promise referred to a counseling appointment for a terminally ill boy Young-soo had grown close to. The boy's discharge was coming, and the hospital hoped Young-soo could attend a final meeting. That meeting never happened. Young-soo collapsed before he could keep his promise. The new insurance policy, so contentious in our family, was intended to support Soo-jin and me, but also included specific arrangements to donate a portion to the boy's medical care and the pediatric hospice fund. The paperwork that caused such strife within our family was evidence of Young-soo's last attempt to leave something good behind, something that might make sense of the years we'd let slip away in silence. I left the hospital feeling the air stirred within me, like a room long closed, suddenly opened to the wind. The worst part wasn't the pain of betrayal, but recognition of how swiftly I'd built a fortress of suspicion inside myself. I had been so certain of the worst possibilities that I had failed to see the quiet good my husband was trying to do. The letter left behind was not an indictment, not a final punishment, but an attempt, clumsy, incomplete, and terribly late, to make peace with all that had been left unsaid. Still, conflicts didn't dissolve. Sang-ho doubted what he called my charade. My mother-in-law's tears became my silent accusers. Relatives scrutinized every decision, whispering judgments formed from their own beliefs and needs. I didn't try to persuade them anymore. I honored Young-soo's wishes as best I could, ensuring the promised donation was made in his name, documenting every step for Soo-jin, explaining to her that even if others misunderstood, I needed to follow what felt right, not as a daughter-in-law or sister-in-law, but simply as myself. Soo-jin's gaze held all the doubts I'd felt too, but she squeezed my hand, her silent acceptance warming me in ways words could not. For weeks, Young-soo's final confession sat on a corner of the kitchen table. It became a quiet ritual, reading a line here, a paragraph there, before moving on with my day. The sentences grew simpler the more I read them, tugging at me, reminding me of all the little hurts and fragile kindnesses we had forgotten. Then the hospital called. The boy Young-soo had cared for was improving. News that should have elated me brought only bittersweet relief. I wished my husband had lived to hear it himself. One evening, cleaning Young-soo's work jacket, I found a small plastic card tucked deep within the lining. A flash of panic, then recognition. It was a hospice family lounge pass. The last ember of suspicion sputtered out. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. Looking back, I can see how our marriage withered, not through grand betrayals, but through the slow accretion of silence, the misguided effort to shield one another from pain. I never spoke my loneliness, and Young-soo hid his fears. Each day's silence built the wall higher. It took his quiet confession for me to finally set down the burden of misunderstanding, to see that what bound us was neither just affection nor just resignation, but a weary, imperfect kind of loyalty. Even now, rumors swirl. Some say I use charity as an excuse to keep the insurance money. Others hint Young-soo may have had a path I never uncovered. But I've learned something in the passing months. Truth is rarely unanimous. Families, especially ours, are shaped as much by mistrust as by love. In the end, sweeping up the shards left by others' judgments is a task only I can undertake. So let me leave you with this. That message on my husband's phone, once a taunt, is now a quiet promise to myself. keep your promise. Those words mean more to me than any apology or accusation. I no longer hoard my regrets. I volunteer at the hospice myself now. Sometimes I slip Young Su's letter between paperwork, reading it quietly on lonely afternoons. Each time a weight lifts, I'm reminded that suspicion, once a shield, can turn into a prison if we don't learn when to let go. Perhaps there are invisible walls in each of our homes, built from years of doubt or silence. The question is, when life presses us with an unexpected final confession, what will we choose to believe? And perhaps, more importantly, what burden will we finally let ourselves put down?